Shocking. Man in accident sues man who saved his life for $40,000. What would you do if the person you rescued from certain death turned around and sued you for $40,000? This isn't the hypothetical scenario. It's the shocking reality that unfolded in Atlanta, Georgia, where an act of heroism became a legal nightmare. Rain hammered the Atlanta streets that Friday evening, transforming asphalt into slick, reflective pools. Lightning cracked across the sky, illuminating the desperate scene below. Marcus Tillman, a 34-year-old delivery driver and single father, lay unconscious in his overturned vehicle. Smoke billowed from the engine. The acrid scent of gasoline filled the air. Every second counted. Most bystanders froze, kept at bay by the imminent danger of explosion. But not Andre Carter. The 29-year-old repair shop owner rushed toward the wreckage without hesitation, armed only with a crowbar and raw determination. As flames began to lick at the vehicle's undercarriage, Andre wrenched open the jam door and pulled Marcus to safety, just moments before the car erupted into flames. A hero's welcome awaited Andre, or so he thought. 2 months later, Andre received court papers that left him speechless. Marcus Tillman, the very man whose life he had saved, was suing him for $40,000, claiming that Andre's rescue techniques had worsened his injuries. How could someone sue the person who saved their life? What kind of society have we created where heroism is punished through litigation? What would you do if faced with such profound ingratitude? This case sent shockwaves through the community, forcing everyday citizens to question, would I risk my life to save a stranger if I knew I might end up in court because of it? Have you ever helped someone only to have your good intentions thrown back in your face? Have you witnessed acts of kindness being met with hostility? Or perhaps you've been in a situation where financial desperation pushed you to make choices others couldn't understand. Today, we'll examine the complex human drama that unfolded between these two men, a story that challenges our notions of gratitude, desperation, and the unexpected consequences of heroism in modern America. Before we continue, take a moment to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. This channel brings you thought-provoking true crime stories with valuable life lessons. Drop a like if you believe Good Samaritans deserve protection, not prosecution. Your engagement helps our community grow and allows us to keep delivering content that matters. Now, let's return to that stormy night in Atlanta, where Marcus Tillman's life was about to change forever. Before becoming the plaintiff in a controversial lawsuit, Marcus Tillman was simply trying to stay afloat. At 34, he worked as a delivery driver for a local food service, putting in 60-hour weeks to provide for his 10-year-old daughter, Kayla. Their modest 2-bedroom apartment in East Atlanta held the fragments of a once complete family. Photos of Kayla's mother, who had passed away from cancer 3 years prior, still adorned the walls. Each morning began at 5 a.m. Marcus would prepare Kayla's lunch, help her with last-minute homework, and drop her at her grandmother's before his first delivery. The evenings, when he managed to be home, were sacred, time spent helping Kayla with school projects or watching her favorite cartoons. These moments of normalcy were Marcus's anchor in a life constantly threatened by financial undertow. Dad, can we please get the new science kit for my project? Everyone else in class has cool stuff, Kayla had asked 2 weeks before the accident. The $75 price tag might as well have been $7,500 for their tight budget. Still, Marcus promised to find a way, a promise that weighed on him heavily as bills continued to pile up. His kitchen table told the story of his financial reality: past due notices for electricity, a medical bill payment plan from Kayla's asthma attack last winter, and a final warning about his car insurance premium. That table served as both dining area and command center for his ongoing battle against poverty. The night of the accident, Marcus had taken on extra deliveries, a desperate attempt to earn enough for Kayla's science project due the following Monday. 3 consecutive double shifts had left him exhausted. His phone buzzed repeatedly with texts from Kayla about her project ideas, each message dividing his attention from the rain-slicked roads. Each delivery completed meant a few more dollars toward keeping his promise to his daughter. Each red light was a frustrating delay. Each minute spent in traffic was money slipping away. Under the pressure of parental duty and financial necessity, Marcus pushed his aging sedan through the storm, his mind calculating tips and totals instead of focusing on the treacherous conditions ahead. As he approached that fateful intersection in Midtown, Marcus was a man pulled in too many directions: father, provider, employee, never imagining that within moments he would add victim and later plaintiff plaintiff to that list. The rain fell in relentless sheets across Atlanta that Friday evening, transforming the city into a glistening maze of reflective surfaces. Street lights warped into elongated glows on the wet pavement. Windshield wipers fought a losing battle against the downpour as Marcus steered his sedan through the congested midtown traffic. Water drummed against the roof of his car, nearly drowning out the navigation app instructing him toward his next delivery address. Marcus glanced at his phone again. Another text from Kayla about her science project. Just a quick look, just a second's distraction. His tires cut through puddles that had formed in the uneven asphalt, sending spray across his windshield and momentarily blinding him as he approached the intersection of Peachtree and 10th Street. From his left came the sudden blaze of headlights. A black SUV hydroplaned through a red light, its driver desperately pumping brakes that found no purchase on the flooded road. Marcus had no time to react, his mind barely registering danger before impact. The collision sounded like thunder contained in a metal box. The SUV struck Marcus's sedan with such force that it lifted the smaller vehicle and sent it spinning across 3 lanes. Physics took over, momentum carrying the car over the curb, flipping it once before it crashed upside down in a shallow drainage ditch beside the road. Inside the overturned vehicle, metal groaned around Marcus's unconscious form. His seatbelt held him suspended, head hanging at an unnatural angle, blood from a gash on his forehead dripping onto the roof-turned floor. The driver's side door had caved inward, pressing against his ribs. The dashboard had collapsed toward him, pinning his legs beneath a tangle of plastic and wiring. Rain continued to pour through shattered windows as a new smell cut through the night air. The unmistakable chemical odor of gasoline mixing with the acrid scent of burning rubber and hot metal. A thin wisp of smoke began to curl from beneath the crumpled hood. A crowd gathered at a cautious distance, their faces illuminated by the still functioning headlights of passing cars. A woman in a business suit held her phone to her ear, frantically giving details to a 911 operator. A college student stepped forward, then retreated as a small flame appeared near the vehicle's undercarriage. "The gas tank might blow," someone shouted, causing the hesitant crowd to step further back. A man in a raincoat moved closer, then stopped as the smoke thickened. "We need to get him out," he called, looking around for support, but finding none willing to approach the increasingly dangerous wreckage. "The fire department is 5 minutes out," the woman on the phone announced, her voice wavering between authority and doubt. Those 5 minutes stretched into an eternity as flames began to lick at the underside of the car. Bystanders recorded the scene on their phones from a safe distance, their faces masks of horror and indecision. Some turned away, unable to watch what seemed inevitable. Others called out encouragement to Marcus, though he remained unresponsive, each second diminishing his chances of survival. The crowd's collective breath caught as the first flames became visible through the broken rear window. The heat had begun to intensify, warping the air above the vehicle. The gathering of witnesses transformed into a congregation of the helpless, everyone present knowing something had to be done, yet no one moving forward to attempt it. Until Andre Carter arrived on the scene. Andre Carter was closing up his auto repair shop when the crash echoed through the rain. At 29, Andre had built his business from nothing after dropping out of college to care for his ailing mother. Years of fixing broken engines had given him an intimate knowledge of how vehicles fail and how quickly they can transform into death traps. Through the downpour, he spotted the overturned car and the growing flames. Andre assessed the situation with the practiced eye of someone who had pulled apart and rebuilt hundreds of vehicles. He knew exactly what came next. If the fire reached the fuel line, the car would become a bomb. "Call 911, he shouted to no one in particular as he sprinted to his truck. He grabbed his heavy-duty crowbar, a tool that had freed countless jam parts over the years, never imagining it would be used to save a life tonight. The rain soaked through Andre's work shirt as he raced toward the wreckage. Heat from the growing flames pushed against him like an invisible wall. The smell of burning plastic and rubber filled his lungs, making each breath burn. Smoke stung his eyes, but he forced them to stay open, focused on the task ahead. "Stay back," someone yelled from the crowd. It could explode any second. Andre ignored the warning. With each step closer, he could hear the crackling of flames intensifying beneath the vehicle. Through the shattered window, he glimpsed Marcus, unconscious and bleeding, suspended by a seatbelt in the overturned car. The driver's side door had been crushed in the impact. impact. Andre wedged his crowbar into the narrow gap between the door and frame, leveraging his weight against it. Metal groaned in protest. Sweat and rain mixed on his face as he strained against the jammed door, muscles burning with the effort. "Come on," Andre grunted through clenched teeth. With a sudden crack, the door gave way enough for him to force his hands inside. The interior was a maze of hazards, broken glass, twisted metal, and the increasing heat from flames now visible under the dashboard. Andre reached for Marcus, feeling the weight of the unconscious man as he cut through the seatbelt with his pocket knife. Marcus fell awkwardly into Andre's arms, a dead weight that Andre struggled to maneuver through the narrow opening. A sudden burst of flame shot up near the engine compartment. The heat grew unbearable, scorching Andre's exposed arms as he pulled Marcus inch by precious inch from the wreckage. "It's gonna blow," someone screamed from the crowd. With one final effort, Andre dragged Marcus clear of the vehicle, the momentum sending both men tumbling into the rain-soaked grass several yards away. Seconds later, flames engulfed the car entirely, sending a blast of heat across the scene that forced even distant onlookers to shield their faces. As sirens wailed in the distance, Andre remained beside Marcus, checking for a pulse, relieved to find one. Emergency lights reflected in the puddles around them as first responders arrived to find two strangers linked by a moment of extraordinary courage. One unconscious, one catching his breath, both alive. Fluorescent lights pierced Marcus's consciousness as he emerged from darkness 2 days after the crash. The steady beep of monitors and the antiseptic smell of hospital disinfectant gradually registered in his foggy mind. A nurse noticed his stirring and immediately called for the doctor. "Mr. Tillman, you're at Atlanta Memorial. You've been in an accident," the doctor explained, her voice calm and measured. "You're lucky to be alive." The medical assessment was delivered with clinical precision. 3 broken ribs, a fractured tibia, a severe concussion, whiplash, and extensive bruising across his torso. X-rays displayed on a wall-mounted screen showed the fractures as stark white lines against the gray shadows of his bones. "How did I get out?" Marcus asked, his voice barely more than a whisper. The doctor explained how a local mechanic had pulled him from the burning vehicle moments before it was engulfed in flames. When told Andre Carter's name, Marcus closed his eyes, overwhelmed by gratitude. "I need to thank him," he murmured. "He saved my life." As days passed in the sterile hospital room, Marcus's phone remained silent. No delivery service calling to check his availability. No income generating while he lay immobile beneath stiff sheets. Instead, his nightstand accumulated documents of a different kind: preliminary insurance forms, hospital admission papers, and estimated costs of treatment. A hospital administrator visited on the 4th day, explaining that while his basic insurance would cover a portion of the expenses, Marcus faced significant out-of-pocket costs for specialized care and physical therapy. The administrator's sympathetic smile did nothing to soften the staggering numbers on the forms she left behind. $15,000 in estimated personal medical expenses, $8,000 for the ambulance and emergency response, $7,000 for his totaled car not covered by his minimal insurance. Marcus stared at the ceiling, calculating impossible math in his head. His bank account held less than $900. His next rent payment loomed just weeks away. Kayla needed school supplies, food, clothes, basics he could barely afford before the accident. When a physical therapist came to discuss his long recovery, 6 months minimum before you can return to delivery work, Marcus felt panic constricting his chest tighter than his bandaged ribs. That night, as pain kept him awake, his gratitude toward Andre began to compete with a growing resentment, not at his rescuer, but at a system that would financially destroy him for having the misfortune of being saved. If only, he whispered to himself, the thought too terrible to complete. Have you ever faced impossible choices that challenged your moral compass? Would you express gratitude towards someone who saved your life, even if their actions inadvertently created massive financial hardship? Share your thoughts in the comments below about Good Samaritan acts and whether our society adequately protects both rescuers and victims. Your experiences might help others navigate similar ethical dilemmas. 3 weeks after the accident, Marcus sat at his kitchen table, surrounded by a fortress of medical bills, insurance rejections, and past due notices. His leg, still in a cast, throbbed constantly, a physical reminder of his mounting financial crisis. Kayla had gone to stay with her grandmother, together while Marcus recovered. Another painful separation for a father already struggling with inadequacy. When the phone rang, it wasn't the delivery service offering accommodations, but rather his landlord inquiring about next month's rent. Marcus hung up and buried his face in his hands. He had thanked Andre with a phone call from the hospital, exchanged promises to meet for coffee when he recovered. Now that gratitude felt like a luxury he couldn't afford. The local news had celebrated Andre as a hero. A small segment highlighted his bravery with footage taken by bystanders. The reporter ended the piece with, "In a world where many hesitate to get involved, Andre Carter reminds us that courage still exists." It was during a follow-up appointment that a chance conversation changed everything. In the waiting room, an attorney overheard Marcus discussing his financial predicament with the receptionist. "There might be another option," the lawyer said, introducing himself as James Wilson. "The way you were extracted from that vehicle could be grounds for compensation." Initially, Marcus dismissed the idea, but as his savings dwindled to double digits and debt collectors began calling hourly, desperation overshadowed dignity. During their consultation, Wilson outlined a strategy that made Marcus's stomach turn. Georgia law protects Good Samaritans, but not from claims of gross negligence, Wilson explained. Medical reports indicate your rib fractures show traumatic compression consistent with forceful handling during extraction. Your shoulder nerve damage likely resulted from being dragged across broken glass. Wilson continued, laying out the case in clinical terms, when not questioning his intentions, only his methods. With proper training, he might have stabilized your spine before moving you. The fire department was minutes away with proper equipment. After sleepless nights wrestling with his conscience, Marcus signed the papers. The lawsuit demanded $40,000 for additional medical expenses and lost wages allegedly caused by Andre's rescue technique. For Andre, the court summons arrived on a Tuesday afternoon. He read it 3 times, certain it was a mistake. The document transformed his memory of that rainy night from one of purpose to one of betrayal. He called Marcus immediately, his voice trembling with disbelief. "I pulled you from a burning car," Andre said. "You were unconscious. The vehicle was about to explode." "I know," Marcus replied, his voice hollow. "My lawyer says I should let him handle all communications going forward." News of the lawsuit spread through Atlanta like wildfire. The same local station that had celebrated Andre's heroism now reported on the legal battle with the tagline, "No good deed goes unpunished." Social media erupted. Comment sections filled with divided opinions. "This is why people don't help each other anymore. Maybe the rescuer was reckless. We weren't there. What was he supposed to do? Let him burn to death." Our healthcare system forces desperate people to make desperate choices. A small crowd gathered outside Andre's auto shop, some with supportive signs, others simply curious about the man caught in this moral quagmire. Business declined as Andre became known not just as a mechanic or a hero, but as a cautionary tale. Andre's lawyer advised him to countersue for defamation, but he refused. "I didn't save him for recognition or reward," he told his attorney. "I won't punish him for being desperate." The stage was set for a courtroom confrontation that would force both men and the community watching them to examine the true cost of survival. The Fulton County Courthouse buzzed with tension 3 months after the accident. Reporters filled the back rows, while local residents claimed every remaining seat. At separate tables, Marcus and Andre avoided eye contact. 2 men bound by a moment of crisis, now divided by legal briefs and allegations. Judge Eleanor Harmon, known for her no-nonsense approach, addressed the packed gallery. "This court will determine whether Mr. Carter's rescue actions constitute gross negligence outside the protection of Georgia's Good Samaritan statute." Marcus testified first, guided by his attorney through a carefully constructed narrative. He described waking up with injuries more severe than expected from the crash itself. "I'm grateful to be alive," Marcus admitted, his voice wavering. "But my medical team confirmed that several injuries resulted not from the accident, but from how I was removed from the vehicle." When questioned about alternatives, Marcus replied, "The fire department was less than 3 minutes away with proper equipment and trained personnel." The defense attorney's cross-examination was pointed. "Mr. Tillman, if Mr. Carter had waited for professionals, what would have happened?" Marcus looked down. "The car caught fire seconds after he pulled me out. So he saved your life?" "Yes," Marcus whispered, but no further questions. Dr. Leon Matthews, an emergency trauma specialist testifying for Marcus, presented medical imaging on a large screen. screen. These compression fractures show patterns consistent with forceful dragging rather than accident impact, she explained, pointing to Marcus's ribcage. The nerve damage in the shoulder joint suggests improper handling during extraction. Dr. Matthews continued, "While I commend Mr. Carter's bravery, proper rescue protocol requires stabilization of potential neck injuries before movement." The defense attorney stood. "Dr. Matthews, has your emergency room training included extracting unconscious victims from vehicles actively catching fire?" "No, but have you ever made split-second decisions with flames approaching leaking gasoline?" "I have not personally experienced." "Thank you, doctor." No further questions. When Andre took the stand, he spoke with quiet dignity. He described the scene in vivid detail, the heat intensifying with each second, the visible gasoline pooling beneath the car, the flames beginning to engulf the engine compartment. "I had maybe 15 seconds to act," Andre testified. "The car was going to explode. There was no time for perfect technique." "Why did you risk your life for a stranger?" Marcus's attorney asked. Andre looked directly at Marcus for the first time. "Because it was the right thing to do. I couldn't stand by and watch someone die when I could help." The courtroom fell silent. The legal debate intensified when both sides brought experts to discuss Georgia's Good Samaritan law. Professor James Lawton, a legal scholar, explained the statute's protections. Georgia Code Section January 29th, 51 shields individuals who render emergency care from civil liability, except in cases of gross negligence. The law's intent, Professor Lawton continued, is to encourage citizens to assist others in emergency situations without fear of legal repercussions. The standard for gross negligence is exceptionally high, requiring conscious indifference to consequences or reckless disregard for safety. The defense's expert countered, "Mr. Carter's actions fall squarely within the law's protection. He faced an imminent threat to human life and took reasonable action given the extreme circumstances. The statute exists precisely for situations like this." During closing arguments, Marcus's attorney emphasized the technical failings in Andre's rescue technique, while appealing to the jury's sense of fairness regarding his client's financial hardship. Andre's attorney stood before the jury box, his voice resolute. "Today you determine more than liability. You decide whether we want to live in a community where people help each other in crisis, or one where they drive by, fearing legal consequences of imperfect rescue attempts." As deliberations began, the courthouse steps became a forum for public debate. News vans broadcast live updates. Social media feeds filled with hashtags both supporting and condemning each man. The case had transcended a simple lawsuit to become a referendum on social responsibility versus personal accountability. Inside the deliberation room, 12 citizens weighed not just evidence, but consequences. Their decision would reach far beyond these two men, potentially affecting how bystanders would respond to future emergencies throughout Georgia. After 2 days of deliberation, the jury filed back into the courtroom. The foreman stood, paper trembling slightly in her hand. "On the matter of Tillman versus Carter, we find in favor of the defendant, Andre Carter." Judge Harmon requested the jury's reasoning. The foreman explained, "Georgia's Good Samaritan law clearly protects Mr. Carter's actions. While medical testimony suggested some injuries may have occurred during rescue, we determined that given the imminent danger, with fire already present and gasoline leaking, Mr. Carter acted reasonably under extreme circumstances. His actions do not constitute gross negligence." The judge added her own conclusion. "This court finds that to rule otherwise would create a chilling effect on emergency assistance, potentially costing lives in the future." For Andre, the verdict brought relief without joy. Legal vindication couldn't erase the betrayal he felt or the $12,000 in legal fees depleting his business savings. Outside the courthouse, reporters thrust microphones toward him. "I'm glad the law recognized I was just trying to help," Andre said quietly. "But there are no winners here." He declined invitations for interviews and charity fundraisers organized in his honor. The shop that had been his pride now felt tainted by association with the lawsuit. Regular customers still came, but he noticed their conversations now centered on the case rather than their vehicles. For Marcus, the defeat compounded his troubles. His attorney had taken the case on contingency, but court costs still added to his mounting debt. Physical therapy continued, each session a painful reminder of both the accident and his failed lawsuit. While a local reporter asked about his next steps, Marcus could only shake his head. "I need to focus on healing living and providing for my daughter," he said, leaning heavily on his crutches. Somehow, the community remained divided. Some started a GoFundMe for Marcus despite his legal defeat, while others contributed to a fund covering Andre's legal expenses. The case sparked ongoing debates about ethics, healthcare costs, and community responsibility. What would you have done in Andre's position? Would you rush toward danger to save a stranger, knowing you might face legal consequences? Or would you wait for professionals with proper equipment and training? Perhaps most importantly, how would you react if someone you saved with good intentions later sued you? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We're curious to hear your perspective on where personal risk meets moral obligation. The verdict ricocheted through Atlanta and beyond. Local news channels ran special segments with titles like Hero or Reckless Rescuer and The Price of Being Saved. Residents chose sides, their opinions reflecting deeper societal fractures. Atlanta's mayor addressed the case during a press conference. While we celebrate the court's affirmation of Good Samaritan protections, we must acknowledge the underlying issues that led to this lawsuit in the first place. Online forums exploded with contrasting perspectives. One viral post read, "Before you judge Marcus, ask yourself what you'd do facing $30,000 in medical bills on a delivery driver's salary." Another countered, "If I pull you from a burning car, a thank you card would be nice." A lawsuit is unforgivable. Community leaders organized a town hall to discuss the implications. The packed auditorium heard passionate arguments from both perspectives. "This case exposes the gap in our social safety net," argued a healthcare advocate. "When medical bankruptcy forces desperate measures, we've failed as a society." A first responder countered, "If everyday citizens become too afraid to help in emergencies, more people will die waiting for professionals to arrive." Legal experts across Georgia began reviewing similar cases nationwide, examining whether Good Samaritan laws adequately balance protection for rescuers with rights of those injured during rescue attempts. State Senator Michaela Grant announced plans to introduce legislation strengthening Georgia's Good Samaritan provisions. "We need to ensure that those who step forward in emergency situations know they're protected by the law." The Tillman Carter case appeared in law school curricula, presenting students with complex questions about liability, civic duty, and ethical responsibility during life-threatening situations. Medical insurance companies monitored the case closely, with some proposing policy modifications to cover injuries sustained during civilian rescue attempts. A small but significant shift in how emergency care was categorized. Religious leaders spoke to their congregations about moral obligations to help others, while acknowledging the complexities of a society where medical care could cause financial devastation. 6 weeks after the verdict, a medical ethics journal published an article titled "Between Flames and Financial Ruin: The Moral Dilemma of Emergency Rescue in America," citing the Tillman Carter case as emblematic of healthcare's broken economics intersecting with human compassion. 6 months after the verdict, the Atlanta First Responders Appreciation Day brought an unexpected encounter. Marcus, now walking with a slight limp but without crutches, stood near the refreshment table when Andre entered the community center. Their eyes met across the room. The crowd seemed to fade as these two men, connected by trauma, separated by litigation, regarded each other with caution. Neither had planned to attend. Both had been invited by community members hoping to heal divisions the case had created. Marcus made the first move, crossing the room slowly. "I didn't know you'd be here," he said quietly. "I almost didn't come," Andre replied, his voice neutral. An awkward silence stretched between them until Marcus spoke again. "My daughter wanted to meet you. She's over there." He gestured toward Kayla, now 11, watching them intently from across the room. They moved to a quiet corner, away from curious onlookers and potential eavesdroppers. Marcus spoke first, his voice low. "I wanted to say this for months. I'm sorry, not just for the lawsuit, though I'm deeply sorry for that, but for turning your act of courage into something ugly." Andre studied Marcus's face. "Why did you do it?" "I was drowning," Marcus admitted. "Not in that car, but in bills and fear. My daughter was staying with her grandmother because I couldn't care for her. I was about to lose our apartment." He shook his head. "It doesn't justify it, but I wasn't thinking clearly." Andre nodded slowly. "I've thought about what I might have done in your position. I'd like to think I would have chosen differently, but desperation changes people. The night of the accident changed us both," Marcus said. "You became someone who saved a life. I became someone who sued my rescuer." Their conversation was interrupted when Kayla approached, her expression serious beyond her years. "You're the one who saved my dad," she said simply to Andre. "Thank you." The simple gratitude from a child accomplished what court proceedings could not. It began genuine healing. In the year that followed, both men's lives evolved in unexpected ways. Marcus found work as a dispatcher for a transportation company, a desk job that accommodated his physical limitations while providing better benefits. The community fundraiser, though initially controversial, had covered enough expenses to keep him afloat during recovery. Andre expanded his repair business to include safety inspections, using his newfound public recognition to advocate for vehicle safety. Local schools invited him to speak about emergency preparedness and community responsibility. The lawsuit that had once divided Atlanta became the catalyst for meaningful change. The hospital where Marcus was treated implemented a financial counseling program for trauma patients. The state legislature strengthened Good Samaritan protections while expanding healthcare access for emergency victims. These two men, briefly enemies in a courtroom, demonstrated how adversity can transform individuals and communities, not through dramatic gestures of reconciliation, but through the quieter, more difficult work of understanding another's perspective. The story of Marcus Tillman and Andre Carter reveals uncomfortable truths about human nature, social systems, and moral choices. Their journey exposes the gray areas where heroism meets hardship, where gratitude collides with necessity, and where our legal system sometimes fails to address the human complexity beneath the surface. What do we learn from this case? First, heroism carries risks beyond physical danger. Andre's instinctive choice to help demonstrates true courage, not just in facing flames, but in placing another's survival above his own safety and interests. Yet our society sometimes punishes such instincts through unexpected consequences. Second, we should hesitate before judging others' decisions. Marcus's lawsuit appeared as ingratitude on the surface, but beneath lay a parent's desperation to provide for his child amid crushing financial pressure. His choice was wrong, yet understanding his motivation reveals how good people can make poor decisions when systems fail them. Third, reconciliation becomes possible when we recognize shared humanity. The healing between Marcus and Andre began not through legal proceedings, but through genuine conversation and the innocent gratitude of a child. Their story reminds us that even after bitter conflict, connection remains possible. Fourth, community matters. When individual systems fail, healthcare, insurance, legal protection, community support can bridge the gap. The fundraisers, conversations, and policy changes that followed demonstrated how collective action can address individual suffering. Finally, this case challenges us to examine the society we've built. Do our systems encourage or discourage helping others in crisis? Have we created structures where financial survival competes with moral choices? How might we design communities where both rescuers and those they save receive proper support? The next time you witness someone in need, will you remember Andre's courage or fear Marcus's lawsuit? The answer shapes not just individual outcomes, but the kind of world we create together. If this story sparked reflection for you, please subscribe to our channel for more thought-provoking true crime narratives. Share this video with someone who might appreciate its nuances, and tell us in the comments about a time when you faced a moral dilemma between doing what was right and protecting your own interests. Your experiences might help others navigate similar challenges in their own lives.